All right, we are live. Welcome, everybody. Let me pull up my notes so I don't forget all of our announcements. So let's welcome Nicole. We'll get to her and introducing her here in just a second, but I want to welcome my session for September. We're talking all about pelvic floor health and everything related to that, which I'm super excited for. If you haven't been paying attention all year, we've been doing one of these M5 Mastermind sessions every single month. So there are 8 others that we have done on topics that you all want to learn more about, find interesting, I think will help you. We've covered a ton of different things and we have replays of every single one available. They're available in YouTube and in the Facebook group. If you need access to them or can't find them for whatever reason, let me know. I'm more than happy to share them with you. I'm trying to think of any other announcements I have, but I don't think I do. This is the most important announcement right now, but I'm going to limit my talking for the next hour or so. And I want to introduce Nicole. She's going to be doing our presentation today. Nicole Thorne is a strength coach that specializes in helping women eliminate leaking and pain in their pelvic floor area by restoring their functional core system. She's a certified fitness professional, a master trainer for core confidence education, and she has been in various publications, which is super awesome, by the way, such as Strong Fitness Magazine, and she has just over a ton of years of experience. She's the owner and founder of Pelvic Floor Secrets, and she believes in retraining and resetting the body first and foremost, so safe movement becomes natural, it becomes automatic. She customizes strength training programs that meet women where they are and where they are in their own health and fitness journeys to make progress specific to them. So hopefully that's a good introduction of you there, Nicole. But tell us a little bit more about you. How did you get here? Tell us a little bit about your background and we'll go from there.
Sure. Amazing. So I have actually been in the fitness industry for over 30 years. You can tell because I don't look my age, but but the first 15 years I spent in more like body transformation kind of situation. And it was the 90s. So, you know, we were very much in the harder, the better, and the less food, the better situation, right? That's where we were at. Anyway, so I was in that camp as well, because it's what we were all doing in the 90s. But when I had I had 2 babies. When I had them, then I was older. So, you know, now I'm like 34, 36, like when I had them, and just everything broke loose. And that's when I had to make a change. I thought, like, I had already been in fitness for that long and I always did it full time. I thought if anybody can, you know, have babies, jump back and be back to normal immediately, it would have to be me. Right. And that is exactly how I approached it. I never prepped it anyway. And for sure, the way I approach my fitness postnatally is what got me in trouble, but it did get me to where I am today. And today I call myself a myth busting person, really, when it comes to the pelvic floor. Today, what we're going to talk about, you can tell me if I'm wrong, but it's probably going to be, if you've been researching it and already working on it for a very long time, this is going to be a very different way to look at it, but also very effective and results oriented. So.
Awesome. No, I love it. No, I just had my baby 9 months ago and
yes, I saw that.
Similar experience. I'm like, oh yeah, I could jump right back into this. And it's like, oh no, I cannot. And I had the experience of going through pelvic floor therapy for several weeks in order to just get back into getting back into the gym. I did take a step back to take, you know, a couple steps forward, but you talk a lot about in your content and things like that about, well, pelvic floor health and the core. Tell us a little bit about how those are all connected. Are they connected?
Yeah, 100. Well, you know, as a fitness professional, like, you know this, but people might not know this or understand it on the level that I want to talk about. Like, the entire body is interconnected. And that is one of the things we are missing right now in this space, but I believe actually in a lot of spaces to do with the body, like shoulder pain, knee pain, like it goes beyond, it applies to other things too, is what I mean. But the way pelvic floor is approached right now, for the most part, is you do physio, which I highly, highly recommend, by the way. So I just want to be clear about that, because you're now in a situation, possibly, if there's symptoms, that needs to be undone. So that is your person. They're the top of the food chain when it comes to the pelvic floor. But unfortunately, and I'm going to explain this to you tonight, it's not the entire story, right? Because there's actually something that caused the problem to begin with. And yes, you could say it's childbirth, but it's more so, there's more to it, which we're going to talk about tonight. And this is what just doing physio is like, or something like that. It's just addressing the isolated area. But what's the rest of the body doing that technically caused the problem in the first place? So that's the thing, right? So, okay, answer your question. The core is more than you think. The core is actually front, back. So now we're talking deep. So transverse, multifidus. When you go deep like that into your body, it's literally attached to the pelvic floor. So the pelvic floor comes around and attaches to the pubic bone, which is then attached to the transverse. So here, stomach area, you could say. And then in the back, it goes and attaches at the bottom of the spine. So, and then that goes into the musculature. So it works together. Okay. Now watch this. When a human being, and this actually technically does count for men also, but I only train women for the most part, except for the odd man that slips in. But when you take in a breath as a human being, so you inhale, right? And we all know this as diaphragmatic breathing, which it is, all this fills with air. At the same time, I'm going to say this very simply, the pelvic floor also gets a message, that the oxygen has come in. A pelvic floor gets a message when you exhale, automatically pelvic floor contracts up softly, right? Because it's like we're breathing normal. So it's like that kind of pressure, normal breath. So you exhale, pelvic floor comes up gently. The front of the body contracts together. The back of the body contracts together. And the diaphragm comes along for the ride. Like with gravity, it just kind of comes along. It has aspects to it too, but we won't probably get to that tonight. But for you to understand, so if you look at your entire core like this, it goes inhale, gently, relax, exhale, contract, like the entire core contracts, right? So front, back, bottom, it's not just pelvic floor, which would be like the old style Kegels, right? It's not just that. In fact, just doing that is missing the whole purpose of how the body works. And now we get into more tightness too. So that's not how it works. So it's like inhale, relax, exhale, contract, inhale, relax, exhale, contract. Now watch this. If you're doing something else, pay attention here. I'm about to lay down gold. Just giving you a warning. So this is how the body works. And if you're just living your life and your body works this way, it's wonderful. You can get pregnant like a whole bunch of times and nothing happened to you because your pelvic floor is like this, right? And it works. And now you do heal. Of course, you need some time healing after birth. That's normal. That's not an issue. You should be able to go back to your workouts and everything normal. But unfortunately, this is not what's happening. Why? Because what's happening is people are living their lives here. So try this if you're at home or wherever you are, except for driving. Don't try it if you're driving. Focus on the road. When you take it, if you're like this, you can try as hard as possible. Kelsey, you try it. Inhale. No matter how hard you try, and by the way, we don't want it to be hard trying, but for argument's sake, the breath is here. So here's the thing. If your breath is here, most of the time, but some of us it's 24/7, then what's your core? But for our purposes, the pelvic floor doing, it's like this. It's waiting for its message so that it can contract up on the exhale. So it's like this. So that's problem number one. But let's say that's you and your pelvic floor now is essentially not working, right? So it's atrophying. So over time, like any other muscle, it's not going to spontaneously all of a sudden not be like if you don't never work your bicep doesn't all of a sudden start, to work or gain muscle or whatever. So same with the pelvic floor. So this is the problem, because now you add birth and that whole thing, and it could be C-section either, but it's still the weight of the fetus and all the things happening, relaxin and, all the things. So there's still things happening to the body, to a pelvic floor that's atrophied or atrophying, right?
And when you say atrophy, you mean weakening.
Well,
or
yeah,
decreasing in muscle mass.
Yes. So
Okay.
Dying slowly. We can say it like that. Yeah, exactly, right? Not functioning, not working. It's just kind of laying there with no job. So now you're a mother, so you're going to get things done no matter what. You will. There's no question about that. So you're just your body is going to produce for you, but you're not ready. So now we're layering on the problems, right? So now we can get leaking, we can get prolapse, all these things, because you are still going to do what you have to do. I mean, you have to, right? Like you have to lift your baby, you have to save your toddler from running into the road, all the things. You have to keep them alive, right? That's the main thing. So that's step one. But watch this. Oh my God. Okay, so goal number 2. I have to stand up. So what happens is, yes, we have our shoulders like this, right? And look quickly, the appearance of my core changes just with that. Like this is a core there's no tension there. But what happens actually is you also have either this, so the pelvis is tucked under like this, or it goes out like this. That's my dog, Otis. It goes out like this, right? And I can't exactly do it, but it ends up being like there's a very deep S curve here. So watch this. Problem number 1. Let's say you're here, and this is super, super common, by the way, especially in my experience, with girls who are fit, women who are fit. So anterior pelvic tilt. Watch this. All the organs are now lying down against the pubic bone, not here where where they can do their job. They're here where they're being kind of inhibited from doing their job. So let's go back. Pelvic floor like this, organs like this. So you can see how we start getting into a little bit of a situation. But there's one more layer that I want to discuss. So let's say, I'll take this one now. Let's say we're here. So now all the organs are lying back. And you know what problems I'll hear about? You won't believe this unless it's happening to you, because it seems like it would be a digestion issue. But women will say, oh, my poo is thin, or they get into constipation. Well, if gut health has been ruled out, think anatomically what's happening to the body if all the organs are squashing against the rectum on a continuous basis. But here's layer number 3. And this is big. They're all big. They're simple but big. So let's say you're here. Any position that you have going on, including the if you're not aligned, those muscles have to tighten up in order to protect you in that position, because it's not happy. So when you have a pelvis that's out, or you have a pelvis that's under, the muscles have tightened all around, right? And what do we get? Tight pelvic floors. But remember, it's layered, because there's never only one thing happening. So it's like there's the pelvic floor is like this, the organs, all the muscles are all tight. And then maybe you're young, so your body is still able to manage it pretty good. You get a little bit of leaking. That's, by the way, that's the time to fix it. By the way, actually, ideally the time to fix it would have been ahead of time, but no one does that. You know what I'm talking about. I mean, I'm being funny, but you know it's true. But right early on, because what you don't want is the stories that I hear, which are horribly heartbreaking because they let it go for 30, 40, 50 years. And now we can still help them. And I do all the time. My oldest client is 85 years old currently. I have a couple of them in their 80s actually, and they do amazing. But sometimes you get in a situation, and Kelsey, you have this also, right? Like in a different capacity, maybe, where now we have to undo decades worth of buildup. But that's where the pelvic floor tightness comes from, plus the not working, so just laying there. So it's right up, like I was saying, dying or weakening. You could say weakening, I guess. And then you add all the little layers to it. So that's why I say, even though, let me be clear again, it's very important to go to pelvic floor physio. So kudos for you to do that. And I highly, highly recommend that. But doing only that. So let's say you do that, and let's say you have a really good one, and she undoes, and you're now in good shape. Like the pelvic floor itself has been released, and you know it's in good shape. But this, you have not addressed the entire body. So you go back to your body. See what happens here? This is, it just shows you the non-functionality of my core. Like you can't really see my pelvic floor, but you can see this, right? And so now my breath is stuck up here. Now my organs are, lying, and my body is tightening. So that's why it's not working. That's why it's not the whole story. How many times I get a person, oh, I've done physio, I've done like various physios. I've done it for 10 years, this, that, other things, but they don't strength train, right? Or strength train appropriately, where we address and we actually strength train you, focusing on alignment, neutral, soft, fluid alignment, and then we let the body take over. I'm having a really hard time today with light. I don't know why, but let me move over a little bit. I think it's the time of the day. But anyway, what do you think about that, Kelsey?
No, that makes a lot of sense. And I'm just like, oh, you're right, stacking on stacking. And I'm like, oh, no. And I think you'd mentioned, just leaking, that's the first sign that something's wrong and you need to go do something. There may be other signs and symptoms, but people don't necessarily associate that with pelvic floor. But I think a lot of women are told, well, you've had babies, just jumping isn't a thing anymore. When you sneeze, you pee. That's just what it is. And from what I'm hearing you say, that's not the case.
No, it's just because the body essentially isn't being given a fighting chance by accident, because no woman is doing this on purpose. They just have no idea. And unfortunately, and I don't know if you have experience with this or you've had any of your clients say this, but it's very common where your doctor will say, oh, you're a woman, it's just normal. Like, don't worry about it. Well, it isn't. And it's being done by accident. It's because it's not in their curriculum, and they're not strength training coaches, just like they're not nutritionists either. Like, we are the ones that are on the front lines for that. Now, I'm not on the front lines if you have cancer or need some kind of surgery. That's their expertise. But unfortunately, because it's the body, it makes sense. You would think go to your doctor, but unfortunately, they don't know anything about it. So they say stuff like that by accident, or they recommend surgery when we can fix it in the gym. Mm. And my track record is like, we fix it every single time. The only reason it wouldn't like that, because it's science. It's like, we're making the body functional. So the person just has to do it consistently and do it correctly. And it works, because strength training, nutrition, it's like that. It's not, let's see if nutrition will work. It will work. Right? You just have to implement the right things.
Right. So we talked a little bit about leaking, and we'll tell some other signs and symptoms that somebody's pelvic floor may not be working as well as it should be.
Yeah. So here are the symptoms that come up, and it's not an exhaust. There's more things because the bodies are always individual. Leaking for sure. Prolapse. So what that means is one or more organs are descending down the vaginal canal, right? Believe it or not, what people don't realize, hemorrhoids, it's this same thing, because essentially what is happening with the other problems is a mismanagement of the pressure of the breath, right? So it's complicated. Like, I don't want to get too scientific with you, but interabdominal pressure is what that breath is doing when it's creating this contract, release that I described, right? So hemorrhoids, because it's pressure that's causing that pressure going wrong. Hernia is one, and low back pain is almost always present. When not always, because you always get the exception, and you can never say always with bodies. Because you just can't, like, there's genetics, but very often low back pain is involved. And because I explained the core being a team together, like the back is part of it. And so if you have pelvic floor like this, the front of the body, the back of the body isn't working either. Like the whole thing is just kind of sitting there, non-functional. Some or all of the time. Again, this is individual, right? And symptoms are individual, but then they have the commonalities.
Mm-hmm. Okay, awesome.
Oh, sorry, sciatic nerve pain.
Oh,
yeah, it's because listen, those muscles are tightening like this, trying to keep you safe in that position. So that goes down the leg. Right. And this is what I mean, like, it's not in isolation. So we end up fixing everything because really the whole body needs to be functional. And in the middle of the body, we want that to be functional. And then it's an awesome thing. It builds on each other the right way, the other way, the good way.
Yeah. You mentioned some other ones, perhaps spasms, and
yes.
then pain, whether it's with maybe going to the bathroom or sex or
yes,
pain in general is probably not good.
Yeah, this happens a lot. And we don't have research. So I don't have statistics. Like, we actually don't have research because a lot of people are suffering at home by themselves. They don't even know that they could be reaching out to somebody like me, right? So that's why we don't have workable statistics on this. But from my viewpoint, but again, that's not totally correct either, because remember, people are coming to me with a problem. So to me, it looks like it's 100%, but right? Yeah. But it's a lot, because I'll live my life. So my daughters are older. They're in hockey, and the oldest is a wrestler, whatever. So I'll meet parents there. They have nothing to do with my professional life. And if they say, what do you do? And I say, oh, well, when you jump on a trampoline and you leak, and no one ever says, no, I have no idea what you're talking about. They all say yes. I go, well, I fix that. But the fact that they're all saying yes, and it's just so normal part of our language, like, we're not doing anything about it. We're making it a joke, like a nervous laughter joke, right? But to me, it looks like it's happening like a lot.
Yeah.
No, I think the percentage is really, really high.
Now there's another, and I don't know how much it's related to the core, but I don't know how much it's related to pelvic floor health, but it has to do with pregnancy, is the diastasis recti. How is that related to the pelvic floor? Yeah.
So it's because the core is a team. So here, let me bust a myth here on diastasis recti.
For those who don't know, what is diastasis recti?
Yeah, perfect. Let's do that. Let's start there. So when you look at the front of the body, there is what's called rectus abdominis, and it runs this way, right? In between, and every human being has this, babies too, there is a space. So there's a fibrous tissue. We didn't know this, by the way, 15 years ago. So I wasn't saying that then. This is now we understand as things have gone through, but it's to make space, right? I'm going to, but it's to make space for the baby. It's actually supposed to heal like in that same 8-week period that the rest of the things like the uterus contracting and stuff like this that's happening postnatally. It's supposed to heal. But here's the thing. If you live here, and I showed you what my stomach looks like. So when I'm aligned, my core, because you can feel it in the stomach, but really it's the whole core. It has this like natural tension. It's not being sucked in. It's just, you can feel it, like stand up and kind of like align yourself. Your body, your core has this natural tension. When you're like this, it's like, there's no tension. And so that's where, when you're in that position, then that breath isn't happening. So how can that area of the body come back together, right? But if you are aligned and we have that whole function happening, where when you inhale, the whole, like, so here, back, like relaxes. And when you exhale, remember, this comes together too. And the back comes together and the pelvic floor contracts up. That's a natural thing that should be happening, but it's not. And it fits under the same category that we've been talking about all along, this core not functioning.
Yeah. So awesome. We talk a lot about alignment and how that's so important for not only core health, but pelvic floor health.
Yeah.
Everybody's at home. You're not obviously physically there with them and can touch them and help people in that way, hands-on. But are there some good things that people can be doing or should be doing? One, specifically, if they know they have issues with pelvic floor health, or if, okay, I don't think I have any issues, is there something I should be doing kind of preventatively?
Yeah. So this is something that is important to bring up, actually, because often when you tell somebody to fix their alignment or fix their posture, right, what they end up doing is the opposite of what they're currently doing. So they'll go like this, right? Or they'll like opposite in an exaggerated way, as opposed to being kind of like what we call a plumb line. So in the middle, right? So your shoulders are in the middle, your scaps, shoulder blades, you're able to activate them. Your diaphragm here is not sticking out like this. It's creating this like tube-like, or not tube, but what am I trying to say? Cylinder that's then directly above the pelvis. So the pelvis is also, it's in the middle. So it's not under, it's not out, it's in the middle. And you're there when there's like no pressure anywhere, right? Like there's no, like if you're here, I feel pressure. Here, I feel pressure. Like this hurts just demonstrating it. So it's being in the middle, and then all the way down to the floor. A lot of people will have locked knees and things like this. But the key, and what you can take away from this, it's not that we now want you to be like this. Oh, I gotta watch it. Oh, I gotta check my posture. Like, it's to strength train so that you're naturally there fluidly without thinking about it, for several reasons. One, no one can think about their posture 24/7, like no one, right? And secondly, we don't want it to be rigid the other way either. We need the body to just be strong enough to function. Let me tell you a quick story. I met a girl. She was younger, much younger than me. I'm 51, by the way, but she was 35, I believe. So she was diagnosed with pelvic floor dysfunction. This is what she called it. I don't usually use these words, but this is what the world calls it. So 20 years ago. So she was very, very young. They told her that, and it's true that I started 15 years ago, 20 years ago would have been worse. Like we weren't doing and had the same knowledge that we do now. But the doctor said, you're not allowed to strength train. And she was allowed to walk and she was allowed to do yoga. Well, guess what happened? She never strength trained because she wasn't allowed. She didn't think it was appropriate for her. And she was scared. She wanted to get better. So for 20 years, she's been doing stuff. She was doing yoga. She was doing her walking, but never strength trained. Well, guess what happened? The muscles now, like already there was an issue that caused the problem in the first place, which is alignment, right? But now she's getting weaker. So guess what's happening? The alignment is getting like it's more. It becomes more and more. Then all of a sudden the pain became so hard, and this becomes too complicated, but there is a reason. But she couldn't do yoga anymore. So now yoga was way too painful. Like it wasn't accessible to her anymore. And guess what came next? Walking was not possible anymore. So she had a huge win the other day. And to somebody, it is going to seem very small, but she was able to take her two young children to school, and she, like parent meet night, she was able to go to the class, meet the teacher, go to the other class, meet the teacher, as opposed to being stuck at the front of the school waiting. Well, that's where it was at. And she went home and she wasn't in pain for 2 weeks because that's what was happening before, which is huge, right? But that's the extreme case of letting muscles go. And then, of course, she was doing things incorrectly by accident with the yoga. But I forget where I went down this road, but do you remember what the question was? There was a purpose for this story.
I think my original question, and you can feel free to tangent in any direction you want to go. But exercises that would be helpful for somebody that does have issues, and then even those that don't have issues.
Yeah. So here's what I do. These are my systems. I reteach people the breathing. Okay. So your body should be able to do it innately. So it's inhale, diaphragmatic breath. So we also call it 360 degrees breath, right? Fills up all around. Pelvic floor gets a message. With the exhale, pelvic floor contracts up. So you could lie down on the ground or on your side, even in bed, and practice this and just let your body remember, right? Because if the breath has been stuck here, the body essentially forgot because it hasn't done it in who knows how long. So that's step one. That you need to learn what this neutral is for your body. And it does vary. And I really, what I said before, is true. Like it's like you want to be neutral, but then we have anatomical differences in bodies, right? So ideally, you have somebody like me or like Kelsey who can help you to say, okay, no, we're going to do this with the pelvis, whatever, right? From there, I will spend at least a week releasing the person before starting to strength train them, because remember, those muscles have been tight for 10, 20, 30, 40, who knows? My clientele usually is my age and above, a little like maybe 40 to 85. So their muscles have been tight for a very long time. So if I strength train that, I'll just strength train them more like this. Because remember what I said earlier, strength training works 100% of the time. Like we're not trying, we're not hoping, it works. But you also don't want to make it work and have you more like this, right? So yeah, releasing, and then we want like a comprehensive strength training program that addresses the entire body and allows you to practice these things during your strength training and then make it natural. I know it's a lot and it sounds like a lot, but that's essentially the system.
Yeah, at the beginning, you talked about Kegels. People are like, okay, I'm pregnant, or maybe I'm leaking, Kegels. And I don't think that's the only exercise to help people's pelvic floor. It may not even be a good exercise if everything's already tight. Exactly. And
you said it.
Exactly.
It's not correct, because Kegels, it's like, okay, and I know nobody does this, but it's like, okay, I'm going to work my biceps. And so I'm going to, my biceps are weak. So nobody works their biceps like this. Right? Or any muscle in the body.
They shouldn't, no.
Right. This will actually weaken it because the muscle becomes tighter and tighter. Same with your pelvic floor. Right? So if we already have, let's go back. So let's say we have the pelvic floor not working because the breath is stuck up here. We have the organs, we have the tightening of the muscles, and you're now, and back in 15 years ago, we were being recommended to do 300 Kegels or by the sets of 100. So I don't know if anybody here is my age and remembers this, and it could have been happening 10 years ago too. Like that's what so right? This is the thing. Like it's they're medical, fitness and wellness and the medical is kind of like that. Like 20, 30 years ago, we knew certain things, which now we know is not correct, right? And then same with the pelvic floor. Like 20 years ago, but we're still a little bit slow because there's still things that are not being addressed, but at least there is people that do know now what works, right?
Right. Right. And so, if people are perhaps, leaking, having active issues.
Yeah.
You mentioned pelvic floor therapy.
Yeah.
May be helpful initially to kind of
Yeah.
get the ball rolling, get some things solved. But then, okay, at home, you can do that I can't pronounce it, diaphragmatic breathing.
Diaphragmatic, or just
breathing. And that's something that I did in my pelvic floor therapy. I had to lay there and make sure you feel your back pressing into the mat, because like you said, it was stuck up here.
Yes.
And so the breathing, and then just making sure that you're having a posture assessment, or making sure that you have good posture to make sure that you're not putting that unnecessary pressure on any of the directions of the pelvic floor.
Yeah. That is it. Now, like I'm giving you the DIY version, like that's it, like it, right? So now you have to apply that for yourself. Obviously, it's easier if you're being coached and somebody is just, because went through all the problems and just does it for you. But that's essentially it. And then you want to be strength training properly, right? So it's all the basic movements. We're not doing anything special or weird or like magical. Oh, let me bring something up here that actually drives me a little bit up the wall. But again, it's because it is on accident. Like I understand that, but it doesn't help me to not be upset about it anyway. Do you have that? Do you have anything like that? It's like, I get it, you're not doing it on purpose, but it still sucks. Right now, if you go to TikTok, Instagram, even YouTube, and you search pelvic floor, you will see tons of stuff. And test this, everything will be, here's 2 special stretches to do. Here is the special 3 exercises to do. So here's the thing, the stretches and the exercises that are usually being recommended, they are logical, they are good to do, and they're integrated in a proper full program, right? But the problem is to think that you can lie down and just practice this breathing, or that you can lie down and just do bridge is often one. But then when you get up, your body is here. Nothing, like there's no way that can ever bring you in. Like you can literally do that today till the day you die. And it'll activate maybe, but it won't make a difference. But right now, that is the language like that. And it drives me nuts, because then what I get is, oh, can you give me the 3 special exercises? Here's the thing. Let me put it in these words. In the fitness world, and this is the fitness world, but what you'll see it like this: 5 exercises to flatten your abs, or 3 exercises that will, how do they call it? Pop your booty, or whatever, build your glutes. And they are, it's true. You do use those, but to do it for real, you need the whole program, right? You need the adequate protein, you need the adequate calories, you need the full body. You don't just do 3 exercises, you got a nice booty, and the rest of your body, what's happening to the rest of the body? Like, anyway, but it's the same. And it's a marketing thing, and it's rampant, and we all know it, but we're built to think of it that way because that's what we see in marketing. Literally, it's shoved down our throat every single day. And so I will do webinars, I'll do speeches like all the time, right? And I'll bring this up, and guaranteed somebody in the audience later will go, oh, is there a specific stretch that you can tell us? And I'll be like, okay, so you didn't hear anything I said. Fine, great. No, but it's not, I make fun and I'm being kind of funny, but it's because that's what we are taught. So in order to break that down, you don't just hear it once and it breaks down, right? Like it's really hammered, but it is not reality. And people like me and Kelsey, like that's what we do. Like we are trying to give you the truth. And unfortunately, it's not as sexy as 5 exercises that pops your booty. But it's really annoying.
Well, that's, yes, it's what's all over social media and TikTok, but it's also, it goes back, I don't know how many years in the magazines. You see them, you know, 3 steps to lose 40 pounds in 2 weeks. And you're like,
it's true.
ooh.
It's true. Yeah. Yeah. It's a struggle, but the only thing we can do is continue. Like, that's why I'm here tonight, because it is my mission that women stop struggling. And your problem might be mild. And so then it's like, but the thing is, and I don't want to get it, like sometimes I feel like this is kind of like fear mongering, but it actually is a bit of a fact, because it's like letting it go. And now the person is 50 or 60 and they really struggle bad, right? Like I talk to people who cannot leave the house. They will not travel because they can't pack enough clothes and pads to leave the house, to take a train ride. So I'm not even talking go to Europe, you know. And then there is also your intimate relationship with your husband. Like there's lots of problems there, and you can just imagine, right? Like how intense it gets. And then pain, and the problem is, I think the main upset with it for people is because they can't find an answer. So if anybody here has ever been in pain, and most of us have, right? Like, I don't know where you live, but I live in Canada, and you slip on ice, or there's things that do happen. So most of us have been in pain before, and you know what that's like. You would do anything to fix it. At least I'm like that, right? Like I don't spend any minute, I can't do it. But imagine if you've tried and it's been years and decades and you cannot find an answer, even though you're doing all these things. So you can understand how upsetting and discouraging that is.
I think, yeah, like you mentioned there at the beginning, it's almost, there's a light of hope for these women too. It's like, okay, leaking, yes, pain, it's not normal. Don't, like, even though your doctor tells you that, yes, a lot of people may experience it, but that doesn't, yes, mean you have to suffer with that. You know, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. You can fix it. Now, in, I'm sure some cases, yes, you may need surgery, but sure, there's certain cases, hey, we can fix this with, like you said, strength training, a proper assessment, proper guidance, and things like that. Yeah.
Surgery, I think, is a personal, and we should bring this up because it's actually big. It's a personal decision, but when you make that decision, but the only person who's advised you is the doctor who doesn't really understand strength training, then you don't really have the full story. And I have not met a woman yet who has done surgery that way and told me that it was a good thing. They always say, no, I regret it. And I traded one problem for another. Now, having said that, if you have a tumor, you have to, right? But that's a different story. Like I'm talking about structural body that is causing the core not to work is different than a tumor, right? And so, yeah, what I hear is I regret it. Like I haven't met anybody, and I've trained thousands of people, and no one has said to me, yeah, that was a good thing. I'm happy with that. But let me add one quick other thing. My dog Otis is, he's stealing pens and stuff. What was I gonna say? Oh yeah, if you're a woman here listening tonight or later on replay, and you've had a hysterectomy, let's bring that up really quick because it's big, happens a lot, because it's being offered as a solution, a quick solution, incorrectly most of the time, in my opinion. But so let's look at this again. You have the pelvis, right? And you've got the organs. And now there's one or more taken away. So let's say we have a core that's not functioning. So the pelvic floor is like this. We have organs that are lying down like this, but now there's extra space. So now we get into possibility of other issues. So it really becomes important to address this, because then we can just, even with the surgery and that having happened, we can have that whole area be functioning. Now, if you're a person that's been suggested to do hysterectomy and you have to, because for medical reasons, the best thing you can do for yourself, and if that's you listening here today, what do? Prehab. So get your core functioning before surgery, because you go into surgery with a body that's stronger, but more importantly, a pelvic floor, a core that's working. So even though you still have to recuperate, the recuperation will be quickly, right? Because your body is like, okay, that's fine. I'm just going to recuperate, but I'm still working, and we have different. So we can still help you regardless. But my advice is, if you can, if you're in that position, prehab ahead of time.
Right. Well, they suggest that for like knee surgery, like prehab before knee surgery. Well, why wouldn't you recommend that for any other surgery? Same thing with like pelvic floor. Okay, you roll your ankle, you go to PT. I pushed a bowling ball out my body and held it there for however many months. I need to go to PT.
100%. But ideally, you did things ahead of time. Now, I wasn't lucky like that either. I didn't do it ahead of time either, because I didn't know. So the second best time is now, right? And you guys have heard this before.
Yeah. So I do want to briefly hit on strength training. I talk to a lot of people, women specifically, that are like, yeah, I got weights. I got my 2-pounders and I'm going to strength train. And I'm like, okay. So when you talk about strength training, what might that look like? What does it mean for people to strength train?
Yeah, I love that question. I know a lot of us strength train for aesthetic reasons. And personally, I love aesthetics. I'm not going to lie. But I don't train now at this age. I don't train with that in mind. It's a byproduct. I train with, okay, how does my body, what do I need to have happen for my body to function by itself? So when I wake up in the morning, I don't worry, right? Because that's the reason to train, really. And also, as I age, I want to continue to be exactly how I am today. So I don't leak, I don't have prolapse, my back's not in pain, I'm 35. So when you're strength training, you think with where you want to strength train your body to be. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. So, and that probably requires you to release if that muscle has been tight for a very long time, because it's very difficult to force yourself. Like, I will do posture assessment on my clients. So I'll have them send me a photo of them standing naturally, and then I'll go through how to get into alignment. And then they send me a second photo. In the beginning, no one can make that, it's not easy or correct for anybody. And that's because of the tight muscles, right? So releasing, and then when you're strengthening, using the basic stuff that we always use: squats, push-ups, deadlifts, lat pull downs, row, basic, all the stuff that all of us do. But do it with a proper intention of where are you trying to strengthen your body to be.
That brings up that mind-body connection. And really, that's something that people need to learn as well. Not only, for weight training and strength training, but having that connection and being aware of what your pelvic floor is doing. That's something, I had to relearn. It's like, yeah, I strength train. I know how to contract my bicep. I know how to contract my glute, but it's not something I ever focused on or thought about when it came to the pelvic floor. Yeah. But yeah, like you said, it's all connected. It's all intertwined, and that's the other thing that you will see. Oh, I need to strengthen my pelvic floor. I'm never strengthening my pelvic floor. I'm just strengthening my whole body so that my pelvic floor can work the way it was supposed to. Oh, I like that.
I
like that.
Mic drop.
Awesome. Well, we have a couple minutes, and if people are watching live, if you have questions, go ahead and
let's check it out.
if people were on Zoom, we'd be able to pop them on live here, but I think everybody's watching on Facebook. So we'll keep an eye on Facebook here in the live chat. But if people have questions and they're watching the replay, what is the best way for them to contact you? How can people get in touch and ask you questions?
Yeah, well, right on the get-go, I am in your group. So if right below this video, person wants to just ask their question, I'll go in. Like if you put my name, Nicole Thorne, like what do you call that? Highlight it. I'll be notified. I'll answer right in the group.
Okay.
But if you want to get in touch with me, you can actually literally just go to my name and come to my message box. I do have a Facebook group also, which you can link, because I do have, so if you're going to be the DIYer, I have tons. Every Monday I do a training, right? And I do explain things. Like today we had this amount of time and I was trying to explain the whole thing, but I break it down into the different parts with my Monday training. So I would say that would probably be the easiest way, but I will answer questions right under the video too.
Awesome. So Facebook is generally best for you. Do you have Instagram too?
I do. Sorry, I do have Instagram too, which is Pelvic Floor Secrets. Okay. With my, I think you would just look up pelvic. It's like pelvic_floor_secrets. But yeah, Facebook is really where I spend the most time.
Awesome. Awesome. And now maybe this might be a little, Facebook works for a lot of people. This is where they're going to mainly watch it. We'll have YouTube too, but is there an email or?
Yes, of course. So Nicole Thorne, so NICOLETHORNE fitness, so FITNESS @gmail.com.
Easy.
Yeah, so Nicole Thorne fitness @gmail.com.
Awesome. Awesome. I'm not seeing any questions pop up at this point in time. But if you were to leave anybody with a singular piece of advice, say, okay, yes, you walk away from this webinar, you walk away from this training, this is the one thing you should know, what would that be?
If there is a symptom, there is an alignment issue, period, the end. Like that's for sure. Unless it's like some kind of an anomaly. And, you know, I always feel like I have to add that. But if there is a symptom, there's something with the alignment that's causing it. So yes, go see your osteo, go see your chiro, go see your massage, go see your pelvic floor physios. All these people are fab because you have a symptom, which means now we have an issue that needs to be undone manually, right? Ideally. But there is the alignment and the full body that needs to be addressed.
Yeah.
Every time.
You mentioned some other, you know, I don't want to say resources, but other individuals, other practitioners that may be considered if people have issues with alignment. You mentioned massage, chiropractors. Yeah. Those you don't necessarily need. Here in the States, you don't need a referral for. For pelvic floor therapy, you usually need a referral, and that would probably, whether it's through your, you know, your doctor, or, you know, I got mine through my gynecologist,
okay, great.
or midwife, or what the lady doctor, she put in that referral. But any other professionals, or well, we have ourselves, health and fitness, wellness coaches, any other wellness professionals that they should keep on the back of their mind?
So this is going to sound funny because obviously I am this, and so is Kelsey, but a proper strength training coach who can take you to the next level. Because even if you see those other practitioners that you mentioned, chiro, remember, their job is to get you out of pain. They are focusing on undoing that issue. They're not addressing the whole body, even if they're doing something with the posture, which some do. I actually have one here in my city that does. She does a full assessment. But it doesn't take you all the way, because awareness is important, but now we have to strength train. So a proper strength training coach, honestly, I think is the most important. Like, it's the front line. How many times have we not heard it in our coaching, right? It's like we are the ones in the front lines, even though we're not covered in Canada or the US.
Not the worst.
Yeah.
Yeah, what was I was talking to somebody and there's literally no downside to strength training.
No,
There's no downside to getting stronger.
no. The only
If you're doing it correctly.
yeah, agreed. The only thing is, I think it is very, very important to get professional help. I will mention one other thing really quickly here. Occasionally, I will talk to a woman who will have the problem, and it would have been existing for a long time, but then they'll say, oh, it's okay, I can take it from here because my husband trains, or like I have a sister-in-law that trains, or something like that. You have to understand, like, yeah, but get a professional that knows exactly what's happening, so that, right? Because I strength trained, but I hurt myself further before, right? Because I didn't know how to do all these pieces that I've been talking about tonight.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Well, I appreciate all of your wisdom, and you're just spewing information, like you said, dropping nuggets of gold everywhere. And I'm just like, I'm so excited to watch this back and
Really
take notes and refresh some things, especially with like
that was a lot. We covered a lot.
But yes, we know how to get in touch with you. And if we have additional questions, and again, I know people are going to post things in the Facebook group, and then perhaps reach out after watching this on YouTube.
Awesome. Awesome. If they forget to tag me, Kelsey, can you, so that I don't miss the question?
Yeah, if I see it.
Yeah, if you
try to be on top of that.
Yeah, if you see it, no problem.
If you can't tag Nicole, tag me.
There we go.
There you go.
Because then we can see it, because I do.
For some reason, yeah, they can't do that, whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, so everybody stay tuned for what is coming in October. I know October is a long time away, but we will be announcing that mastermind 2 weeks before it drops, just like we did with this one. But if you're watching, go ahead in the comments, give Nicole a round of applause and a thank you for joining us this evening. And if anybody has any questions, like I said, drop them in the comments, and we will talk to you all soon.
Amazing. Thanks, Kelsey.